Tay walked through the metal hallway with his head down. He had learned long ago that looking at the ground was safer than looking at faces. Faces meant trouble. Faces meant laughter. Faces meant pain. The Galactic Academy Station was the most famous school in the known universe. Children from 100 different species came here to learn, to train, and to become the leaders of tomorrow. The sons and daughters of kings, generals, and ambassadors filled these halls. They were the best of the best, and then there was Tay. He was 16 years old. He was human. He was alone. The galaxy had over 3,000 known species, and humans were considered one of the weakest. They had no claws. They had no scales. They could not breathe underwater or survive in the vacuum of space. They lived short lives and broke easily. Most species looked at humans the way humans might look at insects. Small, fragile, and not worth remembering. Tay was the only human on the station. He did not know why he had been allowed to attend. Perhaps it was a political game. Perhaps someone wanted to prove a point. It did not matter. What mattered was surviving each day. A group of Keth students blocked his path. They were insectoid creatures, tall and thin, with hard shells and clicking mandibles. Their leader, a student named Vrix, made a sound that passed for laughter among his kind. "Look," Vrix clicked. "The Terran runt is going to class. Tell me, little human, did you remember to breathe today?" "I heard your species forgets sometimes." The other Keth laughed. Tay said nothing. He tried to walk around them. A clawed hand shoved him into the wall. His shoulder hit the metal hard, but he did not cry out. He had learned not to cry out. "I asked you a question," Vrix said. "Are you too stupid to answer?" "I remembered," Tay said quietly. "Thank you for your concern." The Keth stared at him. They did not know what to do with politeness. After a moment, they grew bored and walked away, still laughing. Tay continued to class. The gravity training room was filled with students from many species. The instructor, a massive Goroth, with 4 arms and skin like stone, ran them through exercises that pushed their bodies to the limit. The gravity in the room could be increased to simulate different planets. For the Goroth students, this was easy. Their bodies were built for heavy worlds. For the Keth, it was manageable. For Tay, it was agony. When the gravity reached 3 times standard, Tay fell to his knees. His muscles screamed. His lungs burned. He could hear laughter around him. "The human is down," someone said. "What a surprise." The instructor looked at him with something like pity. "You may rest, Terran. This exercise is not designed for your kind." Tay pushed himself back to his feet. His arms shook. His legs felt like they were filled with water. But he stood. "I will continue," he said. The instructor shrugged. "As you wish." Tay fell 3 more times before the exercise ended. Each time he got back up. No one noticed. No one cared. But Tay noticed. Tay cared. That night, alone in his small room, Tay looked at the only picture he owned. It showed a woman with kind eyes and dark hair. She was smiling. Her name was Yuna, and she had been his mother. The memory came without warning, as it always did. He was 8 years old. They were on a colony ship, traveling to a new world. The alarms started screaming in the middle of the night. Pirates had found them. His mother grabbed him and ran. The ship was filled with smoke and fire. People were screaming. Bodies lay on the ground. They almost made it to the escape pods. Almost, the pirate appeared from nowhere. He was tall and covered in scars. He pointed a weapon at them. Yuna pushed Tay behind her. She had no weapon. She had no armor. She had nothing but her body and her love for her son. "Run," she said. "Tay, run." "Mama, run!" He ran. He heard the weapon fire behind him. He did not look back. He could not look back. When the rescue ships finally came, they found him hiding in a storage container. He had not eaten in 3 days. He had not slept. He had not stopped shaking. The rescue workers said it was a miracle he survived. They said humans were not meant for such things. They did not understand. His mother had given him her last gift time Time to run. Time to hide. Time to live. Her last words still echoed in his mind. Survive, Tay. No matter what. Humans endure. So he endured. The next morning, an announcement echoed through the station. Every student stopped what they were doing. Every teacher fell silent. Even Ambassador Raylos, the pompous Velith who ran the academy, seemed nervous. Attention all personnel. A Vorn delegation will arrive in 3 days. All students are expected to participate in the welcoming ceremony. This is not optional. The hallways exploded with whispers. The Vorn Tay had heard of them, of course. Everyone had heard of them. They were the most feared species in the galaxy. Ancient predators who had never lost a war. They stood over 7 feet tall, covered in dark scales, with eyes like burning fire. Their claws could cut through starship armor. Their speed was legendary, but that was not why the galaxy feared them. The Vorn had a tradition. They formed bonds with warriors they considered worthy. These bonds were sacred, unbreakable, and eternal. To be chosen by a Vorn was to be marked as one of the greatest beings in existence. It meant power. It meant protection. It meant glory. No human had ever been chosen. No human had ever come close. Around TA, students began talking excitedly. The Gorith champion boasted that he would surely be selected. The Keth prodigy claimed her skills would impress even the Vorn. Everyone had hope. Everyone had dreams. Tay listened in silence. He had no hope. He had no dreams. He only had his mother's words and his own stubborn will to survive. 3 days passed quickly. When the Vorn ships appeared on the station screens, a hush fell over the entire academy. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, sleek black vessels that moved like predators through the void of space. The students gathered in the Great Hall. Tay stood at the back where he always stood. No one noticed him. No one ever noticed him. The doors opened, and Kira walked in. She was everything the story said and more. 7 feet of dark scales and muscle, eyes that burned like dying stars. She moved without sound, without wasted motion, like death itself taking a casual stroll. Behind her came other Vorn, but no one looked at them. Everyone looked at Kira. She was legend. She was a nightmare. She was power made flesh, and in 3 days, she would change Tay's life forever. But for now, he simply watched from the shadows. A small human boy that no one thought twice about. That was his greatest strength. They never saw him coming. The Great Hall had been transformed. Banners hung from the ceiling, each one showing the symbols of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Thousands of lights floated in the air like tiny stars. The floor had been polished until it shone like glass. Ambassador Raylos stood at the center of it all, his thin body wrapped in expensive robes. The Velith were a species known for their beauty and their pride. They had pale blue skin, large dark eyes, and voices like music. They also believed themselves to be superior to everyone else. Raylos looked at the gathered students with satisfaction. This was his moment. The Vorn delegation was here. He would show them the finest warriors the Academy had to offer. His eyes passed over Tay without stopping. The human boy stood at the very back of the crowd, half hidden behind a pillar. Raylos had tried many times to have the boy removed from the Academy. A human had no place among the elite, but someone above him had blocked every attempt. It did not matter. After today, no one would remember the Terran runt. The ceremony began with speeches. Raylos talked about honor, tradition, and excellence. The students grew restless. The Vorn delegation watched in silence, their burning eyes showing nothing. Kira stood at the front of her group. She had not moved since entering the hall. She had not spoken. She simply watched, and her watching was enough to make everyone nervous. Finally, the combat demonstrations began. The Gorath champion went first. His name was Brock, and he was massive even by Gorith standards. 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. Skin like gray stone. He roared as he entered the fighting circle, and the sound shook the walls. His opponent was a combat drone, designed to test reflexes and power. Brock destroyed it in seconds. He tore it apart with his bare hands, showering the floor with sparks and metal pieces. The crowd cheered. Brock beat his chest and looked at Kira, hoping to see approval. Kira did not react. Her eyes remained still, like pools of fire frozen in time. Next came the Keth prodigy. Her name was Sela, and she was the fastest student in the academy. Her movements were like water, flowing from one position to the next without pause. She defeated 3 drones at once, her claws cutting through them before they could even target her. Again, the crowd cheered. Again, Kira showed nothing. One by one, the best students demonstrated their skills: warriors, strategists, fighters of every kind. Each one hoped to catch the eye of the legendary Vern. None of them did. As the final demonstration ended, Ambassador Raylo stepped forward with a nervous smile. "Great, Kira," he said, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "We have shown you our finest. Surely one of them is worthy of your attention." Kira looked at him. Just looked. Rillos felt his legs grow weak. "I have seen strength," Kira said. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I have seen speed. I have seen skill." Rillos smiled hopefully. I have not seen worth." The smile died. The hall erupted in whispers. The students looked at each other in confusion and shame. Rillos tried to speak, but Kira had already turned away. The ceremony, it seemed, was over, and then the ceiling fell. Later, they would discover that a support beam had failed. A simple mechanical error, a random accident. But in that moment, it felt like the universe itself was collapsing. A massive piece of metal broke free and plunged toward the crowd. Students screamed and ran in every direction. The section of the hall below the falling debris was filled with younger children, students too small and weak to move fast enough. Everyone froze. The Gorath champion stood like a statue, his 4 arms hanging uselessly at his sides. The Keth prodigy had already fled to safety. Ambassador Raylos had hidden behind a pillar. Everyone froze, except Tay. He did not think. He did not plan. He simply moved. His legs carried him across the hall faster than he had ever run before. The debris was falling, and the children were screaming. And he was running. He reached them just in time. Tay grabbed the first child and threw her toward safety. He pushed the second one aside. The third child, a small creature with fur and wide, frightened eyes, was too scared to move. There was no time to push this one away. Tay threw himself over the child. Covering the small body with his own, the debris hit. The sound was enormous. Metal screamed against metal. Dust filled the air. For a long moment, no one could see anything. When the dust cleared, they saw Tay. He was still covering the child. His left arm was bent at an angle that arms should not bend. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His whole body shook with pain. But he was alive. The child was alive. All 3 children were alive. Tay did not scream. He did not cry. He simply held the child until someone came to take her away. The hall was silent. Every eye was on the small human boy with the broken arm and the bloody face, and then a sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Each one like a heartbeat of the universe itself. Kira was moving. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship. She walked across the hall, past the frozen champions and the hiding ambassador, past the debris and the dust. She stopped in front of Tay. He looked up at her. His vision was blurry from pain and blood, but he could see her eyes. They were like suns, burning and bright. "You were injured," Kira said, as Tay answered. His voice was small but steady. "You knew the debris would fall on you. Yes, you went anyway." Tay did not answer. He did not need to. Kira looked at him for a long moment. The entire hall held its breath. Even Ambassador Rellos peeked out from behind his pillar. Then Kira did something she had never done before. She knelt. Avorn knelt before no one. It was not done. It was not possible. And yet Kira was kneeling before a broken human boy, and no one could believe what they were seeing. "Your champions froze," Kira said. And though she spoke to Tay, her voice carried to every corner of the hall. They are strong. They are fast. They are skilled. But when death came, they stood still. She reached out and placed a clawed hand on Tay's uninjured shoulder. Her touch was gentle, impossibly gentle for a creature that could tear through steel. You ran toward death, she continued. Not away toward. Your body is weak by our standards. Your arm is broken. And still, you did not scream. Still, you protected the young. Kira stood and turned to face the crowd. Her eyes found Ambassador Relos, and the Velith flinched. This one, Kira said. I claim him. The words echoed through the hall like thunder. This one is worthy. This one is mine.
Oh.
No one spoke. No one moved. The galaxy itself seemed to pause. A Vorn had chosen a human. Nothing would ever be the same. The medical bay was cold and white. Machines beeped softly as they worked on Tay's arm, rebuilding bone and repairing muscle. The pain was distant now, pushed away by medication. Tay lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He was trying to understand what had happened. A Vorn had chosen him. Kira, the legendary Kira, had claimed him. It made no sense. The door opened, and Ambassador Relos walked in. His beautiful face was twisted with anger. 2 guards followed behind him, but they looked nervous. This is a mistake, Relos said. His musical voice was sharp now, ugly. I do not know what game the Vorn are playing, but it ends now. Tay sat up slowly. His arm still hurt despite the medication. I did not ask for this, he said. Of course you did not. You are a human. You are nothing. The Vorn have clearly made an error, and I will correct it. You will do nothing. The new voice came from the doorway. Kira stood there, filling the frame with her massive body. Her eyes burned as she looked at Relos. The ambassador turned pale. The guards stepped back. Great Kira, Relos said, trying to sound respectful. I meant no offense. But surely you understand that this choice is unusual. Humans are not suitable for bonding. They are weak. They live short lives. They have nothing to offer a Vorn. But Kira walked into the room. Each step made the floor vibrate. She stopped directly in front of Relos, towering over him like a mountain over a pebble. You speak of weakness, she said. You speak of worth? Tell me, Ambassador, what do you know of either? Relos opened his mouth to answer. I will tell you what I know, Kira continued, not giving him the chance. I have lived for 300 years. I have fought in 17 wars. I have killed more enemies than there are stars in this system. And in all that time, I've never seen what I saw today. She turned to look at Tay. Her burning eyes softened, just slightly. Your champions are strong, she said. They can break rocks with their hands. They can move faster than sight. They can survive wounds that would kill most species. And she paused. But when danger came, they froze. Their strength meant nothing. Their speed meant nothing. They stood like statues while children screamed. Kira pointed at Tay. This boy has none of their strength. None of their speed. None of their natural weapons. His body is soft. His bones break easily. And yet he was the only one who moved. Ambassador Relos shook his head. That was foolishness, not courage. He could have died. Yes, Kira agreed. He knew he could die. He ran anyway. That is not foolishness. That is the heart of a true predator. A predator. Relos laughed, though the sound was nervous. Humans are prey animals at best. They are weak. No. The single word silenced the room. Kira moved closer to Relos. When she spoke again, her voice was low and dangerous. You look at humans and see weakness because you do not understand what you are seeing. Let me teach you. She began to pace, her claws clicking against the floor. Humans evolved on a death world. Their planet is covered in predators, diseases, and disasters. They should have died out long ago. But they did not. She stopped and looked at Tay. Do you know why they survived, Ambassador? It was not because they were the strongest. It was not because they were the fastest. It was because they refused to stop. Kira's voice grew louder, filling the room. Humans are persistence hunters. When their ancestors hunted, they did not catch their prey quickly. They followed it. For hours. For days. They walked and ran while their prey grew tired, grew weak, grew afraid. They never stopped. They never gave up. And eventually, the prey simply collapsed from exhaustion. She turned back to Raylos. That is the human way. They do not need to be the strongest. They only need to outlast everyone else. They endure. They adapt. They refuse to die. Raylos looked uncertain now. The guards had quietly left the room. Their bones break, Kira continued, and they heal. Their bodies fail, and they rebuild themselves with machines. They face death, and they laugh at it. Not because they do not fear it, but because they have decided that fear will not stop them. She walked to Tay's bedside and looked down at him. This boy watched his mother die to save him. He spent 3 days hiding in a broken ship, alone and starving. He came to this academy knowing that everyone would hate him, mock him, hurt him, and he stayed. He endured. He got up every time they knocked him down. Akira placed her hand on Tay's head, gentle as a falling leaf. This is not weakness, Ambassador. This is the most dangerous kind of strength. The kind that never gives up. The kind that makes empires fall and changes the course of history. Raylos said nothing. There was nothing to say. I have made my choice, Kira declared. And no, one not you, not your academy, not the entire Galactic Council will change it. She looked at Tay with something that might have been warmth. Tonight, we complete the bonding ritual. This human will become my brother, not my servant, not my pet, my equal, my family. Tay felt tears forming in his eyes. He had not cried since his mother died. He had promised himself he would not cry. But now, looking up at this terrifying creature who had chosen him, who had defended him, who had called him brother, he could not stop the tears. I don't understand, he whispered. Why me? Kira knelt beside his bed, bringing her burning eyes level with his. Because I see what others do not, she said. I see a survivor. I see someone who protects others before himself. I see the heart of a warrior in the body of a child. She touched his chest, right over his heart. Light. Strength fades. Speed fails. But this will never break. This is what makes a true predator. And this is why I choose you, Tay of Earth. You are worthy. You have always been worthy. That night, under strange stars in a chamber lit by ancient flames, the bonding ritual took place. Kira spoke words in her old language, words that had been spoken for thousands of years. She marked Tay's skin with a symbol that would never fade, the mark of her family, her clan, her people. And when it was done, Tay was no longer alone. He had a sister. He had a family. He had a place in the universe. The galaxy would never see him the same way again. And somewhere in the shadows, Ambassador Raylos watched and planned. If he could not stop this bonding, he would find another way. The Terran boy would pay for embarrassing him. He would make sure of it. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. A Vorn had bonded with a human. Not just any Vorn, but Kira the Kira, who had refused 1,000 warriors before. And not just any human, but a child. Small orphan boy that no one had ever noticed. The reactions were immediate and varied. On the Gorath homeworld, the ruling council demanded an explanation. Their champion, Brock, had been passed over for a week. Terran. It was an insult. Some called for war. Others called for patience. All called for answers. The Keth Collective sent formal protests to the Vorn. They claimed the bonding was invalid. Humans were too primitive to participate in such sacred rituals. The Vorn did not respond. The Veleth Parliament held emergency meetings. Ambassador Raylos gave speeches about the danger of elevating humans, about the need to maintain the natural order of species. Many agreed with him. Some did not. But the most interesting reactions came from unexpected places. On a small space station near human territory, an old Gorath soldier sat in a bar and told a story. He had fought alongside humans once during a border conflict 30 years ago. There was a human medic, he said, his deep voice carrying over the noise. The fighting was bad. Our position was surrounded. Half my squad was wounded, and the enemy was closing in. He took a drink. The medic I never learned his name ran through enemy fire to reach us. Not once, not twice. 7 times. Each time, he dragged one of my people to safety. Each time, he got shot. Each time, he went back. The bar grew quiet. By the end, he could barely walk. His suit was more holes than fabric. But he kept going. When we finally broke through, we counted the wounds on his body. 14. 14 wounds. And he never stopped moving. The old soldier finished his drink. I never called humans weak after that day. Stories like this began to surface across the galaxy. The human colony that survived a plague by locking themselves in a bunker for 3 years. The Terran engineers who rebuilt a broken ship using nothing but scraps and determination. The human soldiers who held a defensive line for 72 hours without sleep, without food, without hope in one. A pattern emerged. Humans did not win through power. They won because they simply refused to lose. Not everyone was convinced. Many species still saw humans as inferior, as a temporary problem that would solve itself. But some began to look at the small, fragile creatures with new eyes. Meanwhile, on the Academy station, Tay's life had changed completely. He no longer walked alone through the hallways. Kira was always nearby, watching, protecting. The students who once mocked him now kept their distance. Even Vrix and his Keth friends pretended not to see him. They fear you now, Kira observed one morning. Tay shook his head. They fear you. Perhaps. But fear of me is fear of you. You are my brother. To threaten you is to threaten me. They understand this. For the first time in years, Tay felt safe. It was a strange feeling, almost uncomfortable. He had spent so long surviving that he had forgotten what it felt like to simply live. But Kira was not content to let him rest. Safety is not enough, she said. You must become strong. Not their kind of strong, your kind of strong. The training began. Kira did not try to make Tay into a Vorn. She did not push him to lift heavy weights or fight combat drones. Instead, she focused on what made humans special. Endurance. Every day Tay ran. At first, he could only run for 10 minutes before collapsing. But each day, he ran a little longer. 20 minutes, 30, an hour, 2 hours. Your ancestors chased prey across entire continents, Kira told him. That potential is inside you. We will bring it out. Adaptation. Kira put him in difficult situations and watched how he solved them. Puzzles, traps, challenges. That required creative thinking. Humans were not strong, but they were clever. Tay learned to use his mind as his greatest weapon, resilience. When Tay fell, Kira made him get up. When he failed, she made him try again. When he wanted to quit, she reminded him of his mother's words. Humans endure, Kira said. That is your gift. That is your power. Never forget it. Weeks passed. Tay grew stronger. Not in the way the Gorath were strong, but in his own way. He could run for hours without stopping. He could solve problems that confused even the smartest students. He could take pain and keep moving, and then Hannah arrived. She came on a refugee transport, small ship carrying survivors from a colony that had been destroyed by pirates. There were only 12 survivors. Hannah was the youngest, a 7-year-old girl with dark hair and frightened eyes. She was human when Tay first saw her. His heart broke. She looked the way he had looked 8 years ago. After his mother died, lost, scared, alone in a universe that did not care about her. He went to her without thinking. Hello, he said softly. My name is Tay. Hannah looked up at him. Her eyes were red from crying. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. Tay knelt down to her level. I was scared too when I first came here. I was alone for a long time. Are you still alone? Tay smiled. Not anymore. And you won't be either. I promise. From that day on, Tay took care of Hannah. He walked her to classes. He sat with her at meals. He told her stories about Earth, about humans, about all the things they could survive. Kira watched this with approval. You protect her, she observed. She's family, Tay replied. Humans protect family. Yes, this is why your species survives. But not everyone was happy with Tay's new life. Ambassador Raylos had been planning for weeks. The bonding ceremony had embarrassed him in front of the entire galaxy. His reputation was damaged. His authority was questioned. He needed revenge. The plan was simple. A training accident. A malfunction in the combat simulation system. The human boy would be killed. And it would look like an unfortunate mistake. Raylos could not touch Kirathavorn. We're too powerful. But Tay was still human. Humans died all the time. He gathered his allies in secret. A corrupted technician who could modify the simulation. A sympathetic guard who would look the other way. Everything was arranged. Tomorrow, Raylos said, smiling his beautiful smile. Tomorrow, the Terran problem ends. He did not know that Hannah had been passing by. He did not know that she had heard everything through the thin walls. And he did not know that she was running to find Tay. Her small legs carrying her as fast as they could go. Humans protect family, and family was about to be tested. Hannah ran through the corridors, her small feet slapping against the metal floor. She had to find Tay. She had to warn him, but she was too late. When she reached Tay's room, it was empty. A message glowed on his screen. Report to Training Room 7 for mandatory evaluation. Anna felt her heart stop. Training Room 7. That was where Raylos wanted him to go. That was where the trap would be. She ran faster. Tay walked into Training Room 7 without suspicion. Mandatory evaluations happened all the time. He had grown used to them over the months. The room was large and empty. Metal walls surrounded him on all sides. A viewing window sat high above, but the glass was dark. Begin simulation, a mechanical voice announced. The walls flickered and changed. Suddenly, Tay was standing in a rocky canyon, surrounded by cliffs and shadows. It looked real. It felt real, and then the enemies appeared. Combat drones emerged from the shadows. Not one or two, but dozens. They were larger than normal, their weapons glowing with power. This was not a standard evaluation. This was something much worse. Tay dodged the first blast by instinct. The energy bolt hit the ground where he had been standing, leaving a smoking crater. But he started to say. More blasts came. Tay ran, ducking behind rocks, rolling across the ground. The drones were everywhere, their weapons firing without pause. He was not supposed to survive this. Above, in the darkened viewing room, Ambassador Raylos watched with satisfaction. Such a tragedy, he murmured. The human student died in a training accident. These things happen. Outside the locked doors of Training Room 7, Kira felt something wrong. The bond between her and Tay was singing with alarm. He was in danger. Real danger. She tried the door. It was sealed. Her claws dug into the metal, but the lock held. Someone had reinforced it specifically to keep her out. Tay. She roared. Inside the simulation, Tay heard nothing. The drones kept coming. His body was covered in burns and cuts. His left leg was barely working. Blood ran into his eyes, but he did not fall. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Humans endure. Kept moving. When one path closed, he found another. When his leg failed, he crawled. When the drones surrounded him, he found weaknesses in their programming and exploited them. He was not strong enough to destroy them. He was not fast enough to escape them. But he was clever enough to survive. Minutes passed, then half an hour. Then an hour in the viewing room. Raylos grew angry. Why is he not dead? He demanded. The technician looked nervous. The settings are at maximum. Ambassador, he should have died in the first 5 minutes. I don't understand how increase the difficulty. I can't. It's already at the highest level. Any more would damage the simulation itself. Raylos stared down at the impossible sight below. The human boy was still moving, still fighting, still refusing to die. Outside, Kira had gathered help. Students who had watched Tay protect the children. Students who had begun to respect him. Even Brock, the Gorath champion who had once mocked him, was now trying to break down the door. The locks are military grade, someone said. We need more time. He does not have more time. Kira growled. Then a small voice spoke up. I know another way in. It was Hannah. The 7-year-old girl had found them. Her face wet with tears, but her eyes determined. The maintenance tunnels, she said. I've been exploring them. They connect to all the training rooms. Kira looked at the child, so small, so young, so human. Show me. They moved through the tunnels. Kira squeezing her massive body through spaces designed for maintenance workers. Hannah led the way, her small hands guiding them through the darkness inside the simulation. Tay finally fell. His body could not continue. Every muscle screamed. Every bone ached. He had pushed himself beyond any limit he had ever known. Now there was nothing left. He lay on the ground, drones circling above him, and thought of his mother. I tried, Mama, he whispered. I endured as long as I could. The drones raised their weapons for the final shot, and then the wall exploded. Kira burst through the simulation barrier like a force of nature. Her roar shook the entire room. She tore through drones like they were made of paper, her claws flashing, her eyes burning with fury. In seconds, every drone was destroyed. She found Tay lying in the wreckage, barely conscious, and lifted him gently in her arms. Brother, she said. I am here. Tay opened his eyes. Through the blur of pain and exhaustion, he saw her face. I didn't stop, he said. I didn't give up. No, Kira agreed. You did not. You never do. The viewing room door crashed open. Students poured in and grabbed Ambassador Relos before he could escape. The technician was already confessing everything. The truth spread across the station within hours. Ambassador Relos had tried to murder a student, a bonded partner of a Vorn, no less. The evidence was undeniable. His career was over. His freedom was over. But the bigger story was what Tay had done. The recordings from the simulation were reviewed by military experts from a dozen species. What they saw amazed them. The human boy had survived for over an hour against an attack that should have killed him in minutes. He had adapted to every new threat. He had refused to surrender even when his body was broken. Remarkable, said one analyst. His physical capabilities are far below average for most species. But his mental resilience, his tactical adaptation, his sheer stubbornness, I have never seen anything like it. The recordings were shared across the galaxy. For many species, it was the first time they truly understood what humans were. A week later, Tay stood in the Great Hall again. This time, he was not hiding in the back. He stood at the center, with Kira on one side and Hannah on the other. The Vorn delegation had called a formal assembly. Every student, every teacher, every diplomat on the station was present. Kira spoke. You laughed at this boy, she said, her voice carrying to every corner. You mocked him. You hurt him. You called him weak. She paused. And yet, when one of your own tried to kill him, it was not your champions who saved him. It was a 7-year-old human girl who showed us the way. She looked at Hannah, and there was pride in her eyes. Humans protect each other. That is their way. Not through strength or speed, but through loyalty. Through love. Through a bond that cannot be broken. Kira turned back to the crowd. I told you before that humans are the most dangerous kind of strong. Now you have seen the proof. This boy survived what your greatest warriors could not. And he did it because humans do not know how to give up. She placed a hand on Tay's shoulder. I have never been prouder to call him my brother. The hall was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. First from a few students, then more, until the entire hall was filled with the sound. Even Brock, the Goroth champion, bowed his head in respect. Tay looked out at the crowd, the same crowd that had ignored him, mocked him, wished him gone. Now they were seeing him, really seeing him, for the first time. He thought of his mother. He thought of her sacrifice. He thought of her last words. I survived, Mama, he whispered. I endured. Just like you said, beside him. Hannah took his hand. She was smiling now, no longer afraid. We're family, she said. Right, Tay smiled back. Yes, we're family. Kira looked at the two small humans, one who had become her brother, one who would become his sister. "The galaxy will never underestimate humanity again," she said, "and if they do, she'll let the sentence hang in the air." No one needed her to finish it. Above them, the stars shone through the station's windows, millions of points of light scattered across the infinite dark. Somewhere out there were other humans, other survivors, other stubborn creatures who refused to give up. Tay had found his place among them. He had found his family. He had found his strength, the Terran boy that everyone laughed at, become something more, and his story was just beginning.